Good afternoon. My name is Paul Arrigo, and I'm the Library Director at Lee College in Baytown, Texas. Now, I'm going to be the description or the title of this presentation might sound a little scary, but it really isn't. It's basically, I created a tutorial package of various tutorials that students take based on the underlying reason why they cheat or plagiarize. But before I go into the description of the tutorial or how we came about it, I wanted to give you a little history of how it came about. First of all, in 2017, we had an overhaul of the academic honesty policies and procedures. A task force was set up and went through the International Center for Academic Integrity survey process. The task force was charged with reviewing and revising academic honesty procedures to meet the needs of the college. Professional development of faculty and students was highly focused, was a big high priority for this task force. The survey was given to faculty and students in the spring of 2017. 3 focus groups pored over the results of the surveys, which were analyzed over the summer, and discovered some of the following problems to address. And the focus groups consisted of administrators, faculty, and students. Now, some of the problems identified with the academic honesty procedures were as follows. Administration, oftentimes the faculty thought that administration sided more heavily with the student than with the faculty member. So that did not encourage much participation or enforcement on the part of the faculty. Often the faculty also never heard the results of the cases that were sent on to administration. So again, that didn't encourage much for faculty enforcement either. Faculty, according to the students, faculty were not enforcing academic honesty in every class. Oftentimes, the students would say that the faculty member just assumed that the student had heard about academic honesty and been taught about it in a former class, so they wouldn't address it. And the students basically shared that they had never really received it from an instructor as a result. Now, we do have a little brief description of the academic honesty policy and procedure in the syllabi, but not every student reads that. Another issue is that the more lenient faculty didn't want to report cases because they did not want to disturb the student's permanent record. They didn't want it to go on their permanent record. They wanted it to be more of a learning experience for the student. Next, there was actually no easy way to report cases of academic dishonesty. We didn't have one form, that online form that an instructor could go to where they submit the button and it goes to all the administrators and people that it needs to go to. We do now. Finally, it was that one of the most things that the focus groups really focused on was the need to identify what motivates students to cheat and plagiarize and how can we prevent it. So, and these were some of the things that the focus groups came up with as far as motivation for why students cheat and plagiarize. First is that students are more interested in the grade than learning the material. When students are more interested in the grade, they have more of an extrinsic motivation than an intrinsic motivation, so they're much more readily available or susceptible to cheating. Also, lack of time management skills. Time gets away from them and they don't have enough time to study. Next one is lack of maturity, especially for our early college high school students. Next is lack of faculty enforcement. The next is students cheat due to a learning gap. This is what the students felt in their focus group. In other words, a lack of study skills. So study skills might be another way to help prevent students from cheating. Also, students' lack of higher order thinking skills. This was something that the students and the faculty both agreed on, that the students in high school aren't really taught how to think critically like they are in college, and sometimes they might be more susceptible to cheating and or plagiarizing because they just out of a sense of frustration because they don't know how to do it. Next is lack of trust between the student and the faculty member, and this is tied with the next one, which is the student does not like the instructor. This is kind of similar to a relationship that a doctor-patient relationship. Studies have shown that doctors who have a good bedside manner and admit that they've made a mistake to the patient, this patient's much more willing to forgive the doctor than if the doctor has no bedside manner and no compassion. Those doctors usually end up getting sued. So kind of a similar situation there. When there's a distrust between the student and the faculty member, the student feels much more motivated to cheat. So this is what we came up with, was more strict sanctions with remedial opportunities. The first thing that we came up with, which was nice, was we came up with an unintentional offense. This is for those lenient faculty who don't want to put a permanent mark on the student's record. And basically it's a way for us to monitor how the faculty are dealing with academic integrity or honesty in an informal way. So they still submit the report. Nothing goes on the student's record. The only thing they have to do is they have to take the online academic honesty tutorial within 2 weeks of the offense. Now the first offense, intentional offense, is the student will get a 0 on the assignment, that's a sanction, plus an automatic hold on their future registration and transcripts. And they're also required to take the online academic honesty tutorial within 2 weeks of the offense. The second time that a student commits a violation of the academic honesty code during their duration or during their tenure at Lee College, they will receive an F in the course, and they'll get an automatic hold on registration and transcripts. Again, they'll have to complete the online tutorial, plus have a face-to-face instruction with myself. And I'll go over certain things that I think they might need to know more of to help prevent it to the next time. More than 2 offenses may merit further penalties up to and including expulsion. Now, these are some of the concepts behind the design of the academic honesty tutorial package. We wanted to identify and target the root cause and replace it with a new, more positive thought pattern or a new skill set. We came up with 4 student learning outcomes for this tutorial package. Students will list the consequences and benefits of following the academic honesty values and policy. Students will list various techniques to avoid the temptation to cheat or plagiarize, including respect for the policy, appreciation of their own learning goals, their own internalized ethical beliefs. The next student learning outcome is students will list the benefits or consequences of practicing or not practicing academic honesty values at school and work. Students will be able to articulate the reason they cheated or plagiarized, developed a more positive thought pattern, or a new skill set to help prevent it in the future. So those were the student learning outcomes. Now here's the logic of the tutorial. All students take the evaluation module, which teaches them the following concepts. First of all, they all receive instruction, which is the International Center for Academic Integrity Academic Honesty Values as adopted by Lee College. They get to see all the values and why they're important. Second is we ask them what type of academic violation they committed. Was it cheating or plagiarism? Then we ask them, and depending on the answer, they get a separate set of reasons for doing it. So we ask them to identify the primary reason they cheated or plagiarized. Now, depending on their answer, they get directed to a different tutorial. Okay, so we have like about 20 different reasons why someone might cheat or plagiarize, but they're separate questions in cheating and plagiarizing. Okay, now we have two types of tutorials in this package. First is ethical inventories, which uses cognitive behavioral therapy techniques to change behavior. Then we also have tutorials that increase a deficient skill set, including active reading, plagiarism, study skills, test anxiety, and time management, with the idea being that if we can address the underlying reason a person cheats or plagiarizes, maybe we can help prevent them from doing it the next time. Okay, now I'm going to show you a little video from InShape Habits on what is cognitive behavioral therapy.
Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, is a form of intervention widely used in psychotherapy, counseling, and life coaching. CBT provides the right tools and support to engage a powerful process of change without wasting a massive amount of time and energy. The reason why CBT is so popular is simple. It works incredibly well. A good amount of scientific research shows how effective CBT is in helping people solve problems and experience positive outcomes. CBT is aimed at changing patterns of thinking and behavior that keep us stuck and prevent us from overcoming the obstacles we face. First, CBT intervenes on our thoughts. The way we think influences our lives because it defines how we understand and interpret the world and the events. In this sense, our thinking pattern can be imagined as a pair of glasses that allows us to see the world in a certain way. It is useful to work on our thoughts and beliefs to deal with issues such as depression, anxiety, and others. Let's say I have a low self-esteem, and my thoughts about myself are unrealistically negative. I believe I'm a worthless person, whose needs are irrelevant, and whose opinions are uninteresting. First, CBT allows me to be aware of these thoughts and the negative impact they have on my life. Then, CBT helps me address my limiting beliefs and challenge them effectively. CBT also intervenes on our behavior. Our behavior has a big influence on our lives, our feelings, and our happiness. In fact, our behavior creates outcomes that can be either positive or negative. CBT makes sure that we experience less negative outcomes and more positive ones. Let's say I have low self-confidence and I avoid public speaking. My avoidance is caused by my low self-confidence, but at the same time, my avoidance reinforces my low self-confidence, creating a vicious circle in which I'm stuck. CBT allows me to address my behavior in small steps in order to experience positive outcomes and to react constructively to external events and circumstances. CBT is extremely flexible. It can be applied to either severe issues or more practical problems. It can address a variety of unpleasant situations, such as stress, anger, troublesome emotions, procrastination, and others. If you are looking for an effective way to improve your life, overcome your obstacles, and achieve a state of satisfaction, cognitive behavioral coaching is certainly a clever option.
Okay, now that you got a summary of what cognitive behavior therapy is all about, I was going to show you some of the components of cognitive behavior therapy and why I chose that as the method for the ethics inventories. And the first thing is that the student needs to identify the troubling situation or conditions in life. The reason I chose cognitive behavior therapy is I used this earlier in my lifetime when I was struggling with illogical thought patterns. And the one that I'm going to talk about today is paranoia over getting fired. So that's an example of a troubling situation. Second of all, you need to become aware of the underlying thoughts, emotions, or beliefs about that problem. And the negative belief that I had with paranoia over getting fired is there is no mercy for mistakes. That was the underlying belief. The third is to identify the negative or inaccurate thoughts behind the belief. And that is, If I get in trouble, I'll automatically get fired. Now, that's totally illogical, but actually being able to identify that thought to begin with is empowered me to know that I can choose a different way of thinking. And that's kind of similar to what our students might experience. Once they determine what the underlying thought process is behind their cheating, then they might be able to change it. And the last thing is to reshape the negative or inaccurate thoughts and make them more logical. So the one that I came up with to counteract the negative belief was I can learn from my mistakes and show mercy to myself. Okay, that's an example of how the process works. Now I'm going to show you how it works when teaching students ethics for academic honesty. This is an example of a student who may have cheated because of competition. There's a high competition within the class, like for instance nursing, or at our school process technology. And that is where I need to get the highest grade possible in the class. That's called, that's also, and then the negative belief under that is I need all the answers to be at the top of my field. Consequences at school might be I am not learning what I need to know. And a 0 on the assignment, I'll get a 0 on the assignment or an F in the class. Consequences at work is I won't get the training that I need at work because I'll be faking it, because I have to show how knowledgeable I am, and I'm not honest to actually get the training I need. Also, if I'm a nurse or a process technology specialist and I fake it, then someone could actually die. Okay, now that's a little drastic, but that's kind of an example that I give for them. Then there's the positive value, and the positive value, the polar opposite of competition, is competency. And that is I learn the material as best I can so I can apply it on the job. The positive belief is that I do the best job possible, so I will make sure I am constantly learning and improving. The benefits at school for having academic honesty skills is that I'll know my exact competency in the course if I am actually doing the work myself. Second of all is I can admit to the instructor when I need assistance. Benefits at work, I will get the training I need to be competent, and people can rely on my competence. Now, how this works is I give them an example, like let's say they chose this as the reason they cheated. This is an example. I take them through the process of the ethics inventory, or the CBT, and then they read through this scenario, and then I ask them to do it for themselves. So I ask them, what is their negative belief? What's the hidden negative belief as to why they cheated? What are some consequences at school that might happen? What are the consequences at work? And then they have to come up with an alternative positive belief to help them prevent them from doing it in the future. So what is the underlying positive belief that you can develop and make it conscious so you can prevent it from happening again? And then what are the benefits at school and at work? So the student may or may not have the same answer as I do. What matters is that they put the effort into doing the thinking and doing the process of CBT. And I will be showing you that I actually use a rubric to help assess whether they actually do an honest job or not. Another example of ethics inventory is faculty leniency. It should also be called past experience of the student. And that is, there's a past experience where the student over many times has never gotten caught cheating. The faculty also don't enforce it, and it's easier to cheat than to work hard. The negative belief is, why not cheat if I can get away with it? Consequences at work, I get fired rather quickly after starting any job and I don't know why. Now, the opposite value is consequences. I get a 0 on my assignment, and sometimes this came forth in the student focus group, and that was that students don't really realize what a 0 means in a class. For instance, mathematically. For instance, if you have a test that's worth 25% of your grade and you get a 0, then the best grade you can get in the class is a 75%. And then that's only if you get 100% on the rest of your work. So just showing a student the mathematical significance of a 0 is beneficial to that student. Second is the positive belief that the mathematical consequences of getting a 0 on an assignment is not worth the risk. And finally, benefits at work. When I make the ethical decision at my job and work hard, I gain my employer's trust and I have a better chance of promotion. The next ethics inventory is lack of self-discipline. And the value is lack of self-discipline, and that's where you prioritize fun over work. The negative belief is, I want everything to be fun. Consequences at work, I don't like my job. I keep having to do tasks I don't like, and sometimes I just don't do them. The polar opposite is self-discipline, and that prioritizes work but uses fun as a reward. Positive belief or thought is, delayed gratification makes me successful. Some of the benefits at work is I do tasks I don't like first and save fun tasks as a reward. I also enjoy my golf outings much more because I've already got my work done. Now those are 3 of the ethics inventories. I also created ones for the time management, for study skills, and active reading, which enables students who take those tutorials to also get a taste of this ethics inventory. So almost every student gets to take one. And this is an example of the rubric that I use, and you can see that on your own time. It's in your materials. Now, the second type of tutorial question, the tutorials that we have are called academic skills tutorials. I got permission to adapt the study skills, test anxiety, and time management tutorials created by the Academic Success Center at the Office of First Year Experience at the University of Louisiana Lafayette. I searched for these on the internet because I didn't want to have to reinvent the wheel. If someone else has done the work and has done the tutorials, then I would love to adapt them. And I got her permission to do that. And the name of the course was Student Success 101, Creating a Successful College Experience Online DIY Workshop. And it's all in a PDF format, but I was able to adapt it and put it into our tutorial with permission. Okay, now these are the questions that we asked the students in the tutorial. Once a student has selected cheating as the reason for, or as the type of violation that they committed, then they get these set of questions that'll point them to the appropriate tutorial. So the first one is, I am in a competitive academic program and I need to get the best grade possible. And I've already talked to you about that one. That goes to the competition ethics inventory. I just skimmed the articles and I found and cited them in my paper. Or I just scanned my textbook and I thought I was ready for the exam. That takes them to the active reading tutorial. I cheated in the past and nothing has ever happened. And my instructor didn't police it very well. So I just cheated again. That takes them to the leniency ethics inventory. I knew I needed to study for the exam, but I went and did something fun instead. That goes to the lack of self-discipline ethics inventory. I really don't understand the material. No matter how hard I try, I can't seem to get it right. Then they get pointed to the study skills tutorial. No matter how hard I study, I can't seem to pass the test. That goes to the study skills tutorial also. I knew the material, but I couldn't express it on the test. When test day came, I froze. That takes them to the test anxiety tutorial. The next question is, I ran out of time to study appropriately for this test. This takes them to the time management tutorial. Next question is, I didn't study enough for my test. I felt insecure, so I looked at another student's test before or used crib notes. And this takes them, again, to the lack of self-discipline ethics inventory. But I also add some suggestions just specifically for that particular reason. and that is just consider it a learning experience and then do better the next time. A poor grade is not the end of the world. You can learn from failure. And I give him an example of the FedEx founder who received a C- for his business plan in college. So you can even learn from your mistakes. Next question is I thought it was supposed to be a group project. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but a lot of students get confused as to whether it was a group project or an individual project. Again, they get pointed to the study skills tutorial. But again, I add some suggestions specifically for the group project question. And that is, there's usually a miscommunication between the instructor and the student. And it's important for the instructor, ask the instructor exactly how she or he wants you to work on the assignment, as either as part of a team or as an individual. Or you can consult the syllabus for the class if the instructor does not respond. The last reason for cheating would be my instructor's tests are unreasonably difficult. That takes them to the test anxiety tutorial. Added suggestions are visit the instructor and ask them how you can improve on the test the next time. Check with your peers who also did well on the test, and attend a test anxiety, study skills, or note-taking workshop at Lee College, or look for some online. Now, these are the questions that we ask, or the reasons that the students can choose for why they plagiarized, and almost all of these take them to the plagiarism tutorial. First one is, I didn't know I was plagiarizing. That takes them to the plagiarism tutorial. I didn't take good notes when I was doing my research, and I couldn't tell which quotes or unique ideas came from each article that I used. That's where I added the suggestions. Write down or download the full citation of the topic of your notes. Put quotation marks around direct quotes and include the page number. Note the page number for any unique ideas you come across. And writing your own ideas next to your notes is also helpful for the writing process. Next reason is I didn't read the articles as thoroughly as I thought. That takes them to the active reading and also the plagiarism tutorial. The next one is I have never written an essay that requires citations. Again, it goes to the plagiarism tutorial. Next reason is I got confused on which citation method I needed to use, or I depended too much on the databases to create them for me. Added suggestions here is most instructors will have their citation method listed in their syllabus. If not, be sure to ask them beforehand what citation style they use, and you're responsible for checking any database generated citation, and it's also good to have the citation manual with you as you check them. So why would you even, the next reason is why do I even need sources if I already have the answer in my head? Added suggestions are instructors require you to find sources that support your thesis, and good research requires you to do a literature search to see what others have written about your topic before you present your own. Next reason is I am used to borrowing other people's writings at work without giving them credit. Why do I have to do that at school? Added suggestion here is at college, it's always good to take the moral high ground in your research. The culture of academia is to give credit to others' works or unique ideas. At work, colleagues may not mind sharing their work with you. It is also the company that owns the copyright, so you have the right to use the work of your colleagues without their permission or giving them credit. But it would be in your best interest to do so to ask their permission for professional reasons. So those were all the reasons and the ultimate pointers to the appropriate tutorial. What's interesting is probably the most amount of tutorials any one person or student would have to take is 3. But oftentimes the students don't necessarily read the instructions well enough, and sometimes they take all 6 to 7 of them. So, and that could be partially because of the way we created the tutorial. We created the tutorial as components, and they're not all into one piece of software. So we've used SoftChalk Cloud for the study skills tutorials, and the main reason we did that was the score center in SoftChalk automatically gets dumped into the Blackboard gradebook. So that makes it automatic for us. And then we also use SpringShare LibWizard surveys for the ethics inventories. These, we did that because it was just, they're simple to write, and we have to grade them manually anyway because we're using a rubric. So then once it gets graded manually, then we enter the grade into the Blackboard gradebook. Next thing is assessment requirements. Students must score an average of 80% across all the tutorials and inventories taken. They can take it as many times as possible to get a passing score. So the idea is we want them to get at least an 80% overall success rate on all the tutorials that they take, and by taking it as many times as possible to reach that, they get reinforced every time they take it. Next one is the assessment is that students completed an average of 3 tutorials per person to complete the academic honesty package with an average score of 89%. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of the assessment for the ethics inventories. We have 2 targets that we tried to meet. First one is that 60% of the students will score 90% or higher on the ethics inventories. And we have 7 different ethics inventories written, and we have 4 of them that passed, that met the target. And those were active reading, descriptive, lack of discipline, leniency, and study skills. Now, the caveat is that the lack of discipline and leniency, both of the populations for those inventories, only 2 people completed them. So don't have a really good number of a good sample of students. So that could be why those 2 are so high. The next target is that we wanted 80% of the students will score an 80% or higher on the ethics inventories. Again, we had 4 out of 7. They were the same ones: active reading, discipline, leniency, and study skills. Next one is assessing the skill set tutorials. 60%, again, we have the same 2 targets. 60% of the students will score 90% or higher on the skill set tutorials. And unfortunately, only one of them met that, and that was the plagiarism tutorial. By the way, of those 5 tutorials, Lee College created the active reading one and the plagiarism one. I got the other 3 from the University of Louisiana, Lafayette. And possibly some of the results there might be because their assessment was written for a 4-year student, but that might be a possibility. I might have to change the difficulty of the tests, or try to make it that so the students don't take up to 6 tests, because if they take 6 tutorials, by the time they get to one of these, they might be all burned out. I don't know. The next one is 80% of the students will score an 80% or higher on the skill set tutorials. And we only had 1 again that met that target, and that was the plagiarism tutorial. But we had 3 that were close: active reading, study skills, and time management. Okay? The conclusion overall is, since its inception in 2018, no student has had to take the tutorial a second time for their second offense, which has really been good. That's a good sign. We had 1 student that took it twice, but it didn't really count because they actually violated. They'd made 2 offenses basically 2 weeks after one another, and they didn't really get a chance to go through the normal process. So I would say overall it's been a good experience. And here's some further reading that I suggest you do. We actually used a number of these articles to help come up with the reasons for why students cheat and plagiarize, but the bulk of the reasons actually came from the focus groups that we held back in 2017, in the fall of 2017. And again, my name's Paul Arrigo. I'm the library director at Lee College. If you'd like to contact me and get further information, and I can provide you anything that you might need if you're going in this direction, I'd be glad to help. Thank you very much.